In this video, we'll go over all of the necessary steps that you need to complete your first project in Design and Digital Art 2, which is a nostalgia triptych, or 3 separate Photoshop pieces about the same theme, which is nostalgia or memories. So first I'm going to create my one Photoshop document. Say File, New. You want to make sure that the size is in inches if it's not already. And I'm just going to create kind of a traditional canvas size in case I wanted to print this and frame it. My width, I think, will be 14, and I want my height to be 11. We can always change the canvas size by going Image and Canvas Size if we're not happy with it. And I want my resolution to be 300 so I can print it. If you're thinking of printing these, I would change the color to CMYK color. 8-bit is fine. I'm going to say OK. And now I have my blank canvas, so to speak. And we are going to open up our class folder. I will for this demo, and you'll use a compilation of your own images. But just for this demonstration, you can follow along by going to Class CHS, Art, Design Digital Art 2, Project number 1, Resources, and then Practice Stock Images. And I'm going to start with a background. I found this background on the internet, Foggy Coast. So I'm going to right-click this, because it's JPEG right now, and I'm going to say Open with Photoshop, so we can adjust this before we click and drag it over. With images found on the internet as well as scanned-in images, you will want to check the image size, and you will change the resolution to 300 to match your blank canvas. And look at the height and the width. The width on mine right here was 14, so I'm going to type that in. It's a little bit smaller, that's okay. We just kind of want to get this to be ballpark range because we can always transform it. I have to zoom out of this now, and I will use my Move tool to click and drag this over to my canvas. And go Control T to transform this. If I want to keep the proportions, this is a photograph, so sometimes it looks kind of goofy if you don't. Hold down Shift and drag. Oops. Then I can move. If I want to transform again, I'll go Control T, hold down Shift, and then get this to position that I like. And I'm only really paying attention to what's on the canvas. I know my picture went off of the canvas, but that's okay. So I have my image, my locked background. Now I'm going to bring in other things here because, like I said, I found this image on the internet. I want to make sure that I really focus on making this my own by incorporating hand-drawn and painted and written things, as well as my own photographs and then other images that I find on the internet. So the first thing I'm going to open is my handwritten notes. And with this nostalgia project, this is a good idea for people who are not super into drawing or painting. They feel like they're not really a drawer or painter. So you can just write reflections or memories. You can write directions. I wrote latitude, longitude coordinates, and then dates that I visited this place. There's just a whole bunch of things that you could do. So I'll go Image, Image Size to check. First, this is 11 by 8 at 300. I'm going to use the scanner in R135 to bring this into my computer because it's a little bit cleaner than just taking an image of it on my phone. I'll go Control T, make this larger. I can momentarily drop the opacity of this layer a little bit just to kind of see where this will be. There we go. I kind of like how this line lines up with that seafoam. Double click, bring the opacity back up, and if I have a document that has black writing and then a white background, like a drawing or a written postcard or letter, the two blend modes that I think work the best are darken or multiply. What that does is it keeps the black and it gets rid of any white. That multiply worked a little bit better, I think, than the darken in this case. If I didn't want it to be as intense, I could drop down the opacity, but that changes my whole layer at once. And let's say I want to blur the edges, but then keep some of this middle stuff a little bit more visually apparent. I will put on a layer mask to my written text layer, and the layer mask is located right down here to the right of the FX button on the bottom of the layers panel. I'll click that, and with layer masks we always want to make sure that we're operating on the layer mask, so the bounding box is around the layer mask instead of around your actual layer. So just make sure that if you're making changes, you're doing it on the layer mask. And then move that over a little bit. The black and the white, the foreground and the background color, no longer stay black and white. They symbolize black for erasing, and then white for adding back. So with that in mind, I'll choose a brush. We'll talk more about different kinds of brushes in our digital painting unit, but for now I want kind of a soft edged brush. It can just be a simple one, and I want to take away some of this. So I want to make sure that black is my foreground color. If I wanted to add it back, I would use this flippy key to get the white in front of the black. Now I don't want to erase all of this at once, I kind of want to do it gradually, so I'm going to drop down my opacity. I can make my brush bigger with the bracket keys or smaller with the bracket keys. And I'm just going to begin to paint, bring that up just a little bit, on my layer mask, not my actual layer, to get some of this to dull down just a little bit. There we go. Since it's just thin black lines, it's not as apparent as if we were doing like a photograph. But let's say I want those lines to kind of go into the background and I want to keep the text. Make this smaller and have more control. Alright, that's a little bit better. And I'm just going to keep this idea of layer masks in the front of my mind throughout the rest of this project because it is helpful. Let's say that the next thing I want to do is add a drawing that I did. I'm going to find pencil drawing of a shell, right click on that, open with, Photoshop, and image size. 6x9 is okay at 300. Again, I scan this, so I control of scanning in at 300. With Internet Photos, you don't always have that. I'm going to click and drag this over. And I'm trying to think of where a good spot for this would be. Maybe I'll put it down here. So I'll go Control T, rotate this, and there we go. I can drop the opacity again just to kind of see where it will be. Holding down Shift, kind of want it to go along the break in sand and water. Double click, bring the opacity back up, and now I'm just going to find a good blending mode, and I'm just going to start to go through them right now. And I'm going to ignore this black area. I'm just going to focus on what happens with the inside of the shell, because we can keep the inside while getting rid of the outside with a layer mask. For soft light, kind of taking note of what I like, what I don't like. I think my favorite here is soft light, so I'm going to choose that, and then I will put on a layer mask and do the same kind of thing. I want to start taking away this outside gradually. So I'm going to choose my brush. I'm going to bring the opacity up a little bit more. My brush here, let's see, from a different project. Let's see, reset brushes. There we go, I have a nice soft brush now. So I'll just kind of begin to erase anything that I don't want. When I get really, oops, that means add back. Now let's say, the nice thing about layer masks is if I accidentally did something like that, I don't have to immediately go edit, undo, or go into my history panel. I can just flip and add this back. Maybe I want to purposely erase some. I can do so down here. I want to make this a little bit darker here, a little bit less seen. So this kind of push-pull dynamic of layer masks is called non-destructive editing, and it is used by designers who use Photoshop all the time. It's one of the most, arguably, one of the most important features that Photoshop has to offer. So I'm not going to take too much more time on this. If I were doing this not for a demonstration, I'd do it a little bit better, but I just want to get to a couple more things that you may want to see that may give you ideas for objects to incorporate into your project. So there we go. I took one of my old drawings and then repurposed it into this piece to add some meaning. The last thing I want to show you is watercolor drips and how those can be used, just plain watercolor backgrounds that are easy to make, anyone can make them, into this work. So I'll select that, open it with Photoshop again, image, just check the image size, that looks great, and then I'm going to click and drag these drips over. Now I want to try and find a good spot for these. I think I want them to go horizontally. Maybe kind of going like this. I'll go Control T. Since this isn't a recognizable object, I can stretch it without holding down Shift. I just kind of want to make it work for me. Drop the opacity just a little bit to see where the heck is this going to go. I really want it to go over that ocean right there. Double click and bring up the opacity again. Play with the blending mode. Again, if you have a white background, using darken or multiply usually works pretty well. Multiply worked a little bit better than darken did, I think. And you can always just do traditional Photoshop adjustments on anything. So let's say this background is now looking a little bit dark. I can add an adjustment layer by going Window, Adjustments, and let's just bring up brightness a little bit. There we go. I like that a little bit better. And then that will add a separate layer, so you can always delete that or hide it from your site. So again, Window, there's one more I want to do, it's the levels. Actually, I want to do curves. Window, Adjustments. So just kind of taking skills that you've learned in previous levels and incorporating them into this piece. You could also do photo filters, really anything. So again, the last thing that I'll do is include adding a layer mask on my watercolor painting, because I don't want it on the shell, I don't want it up here, so I'm just going to take a moment to kind of dull that out by brushing at a medium opacity. I'm going to get rid of that stuff. Maybe I kind of want it to fade out a little bit, drop that even more. And there you have it. So I've turned a photograph that I found on the internet into my own piece by adding writing and adding some abstract painting and then adding a realistic drawing. Like I said, if you're not super into drawing and painting, you can just kind of create abstract ground, so to speak, or backgrounds, as well as scanning in some writing and create a piece that's truly your own.